Welcome to the Lynn Community Television show. I'm Sean Donahue. Here with me today, Dave Dorgan, president of the Lynn Shore Little League. The Lynn Community Television show focuses on organizations working to make their impact right here in the city of Lynn, and that's exactly what Dave and his organization's doing right down there at Kiley Park. For those of us joining us today, you can jump on to the Lynn Shore Little League website, www.lynnshore.org. You can also jump on Facebook at Lynn Shore LL. Dave, want to talk about the league, want to talk about all the improvements since you've been there, but first and foremost, I want to give you some ample time to explain who you are and what you do down there.
Sure. So I am the president of Lynn Shore. I became president the year after my son Declan played t-ball, so he was 5 at the time, he's 13 now, so maybe 7 or 8 years I've been president.
Okay.
We enrolled in the program and went down, and we played that first season, and there was a lot of room for improvement in the league. It had struggled through some rough times at Shore. I contacted the District 16 administrator, Joe Baglieri. I had a couple of conversations with him. So at the end of the season, they do a vote in the fall for the following season. I was running my high school reunion at the time. And the following day, one of the coaches called me and said that I had become president of the Little League.
All right.
And I said I didn't even know that I was running for president.
That happens all too often.
It happens. You know, it was a grassroots type effort. We had a group of people who were just trying to make the program a better program. The then president was ill. I didn't understand that at the time, but he was very ill, and the program had run into a lot of problems with the district and with Little League corporate, and it was time for change. So it was lightning struck.
And now to what it's become, we're going to get into that a little bit more in depth, but it's become a huge impact in that community. We want to talk about that, but first and foremost, I'd like to get a little bit of detail out about the league. So I played Little League baseball. I was always like the 12-year-old hanging out with the 10-year-olds because I was never really good at it, but I needed something to do while mom was at work, so baseball was what it was, and Kiley Park is where I played. So I never really understood like the leagues. I know that there's like a big, huge deal. Is there an umbrella? How does it all work? It
is a big deal. Little League is a worldwide organization. You can see that when Little League World Series plays in Williamsport. You know, they play China. So it is worldwide, but within the city of Lynn, there are 5 chartered Little League teams, with the Challenger program being the 6th. So there are technically 6 Little Leagues in the city. We belong to District 16, and District 16, there are 18 teams in District 16. The top of the District 16 is Joe Baglieri. He's the district administrator. So there's the district administrator for District 16. There are 18 leagues in the district, 5 in the city of Lynn, 6 with the Challenger League.
Okay.
So each of those teams applies for a charter every year. There's a whole process by which you need to get a charter. You have to submit safety plan. You need a board of directors. You need your minutes from those meetings. Little League covers some of your insurance. You pay for the number of teams that you have in your league. You'll pay a per team fee, and then you'll pay an insurance per team. Once you pay that, you become a charter. You continue with your charter. After January 1st, you cannot organize your league as a league for that year until you have chartered and paid your insurance. So technically you go from January 1st to December 31st every year.
Okay. So we're talking about Little League and how it's a worldwide thing. Obviously, there's a value to be had when it comes to Little League. I mean, if you could kind of wrap it up in a nutshell on a worldwide level, I mean, what value does Little League have to the world? Well,
you mentioned that you remembered playing at Kiley Park. I think that, as a young child, things get imprinted on you. I remember everything about playing. I played at Pine Hill, and in fact, to become president of Lynn Shore, I almost felt like a traitor to my roots of Pine Hill, because Shore was a big rivalry of ours when we played at Pine Hill. Right. So My kids are Shore kids. I mean, it's almost it's hard to believe that I'm a Pine Hill guy and my kids are Shore guys. You know, they're going to grow up and they're going to remember their experiences at Lynn Shore. So I think the value that it really teaches community. You know where you grew up, and I could name every kid on every team, still today. And I think that I have two boys, Declan and Nolan. Baseball is part of their life. Lynn Shore has become part of their lives. Even Declan's moved on to St. Mary's now, and he's playing at Babe Ruth. His friends are still his Lynn Shore friends. We had a scrimmage game last night at Babe Ruth, and a couple of the kids didn't show up, and a good number of the kids that were on my son Declan's team were former Lynn Shore kids. And he had a blast. It was sort of a reunion of sorts. Just a pickup game, but you could tell he was comfortable with the kids. The kids were comfortable with him, they were comfortable with me, and we had a great time. It was a very short scrimmage because we ran out of daylight, but I think that those are the things that the kids are going to remember as they get older.
So today, we're talking about Little League and the impact that it makes on the overall majority. In our neighborhood right there down in Kiley Park, a whole neighborhood really is revolving around that park.
Yes.
What events go down? What does Lynn Shore Little League mean to the neighborhood down there around Kiley Park?
I think that we have, I'm not exactly sure of our numbers this year, but last year it was about 175 kids. When we took over the program, it was probably fewer than 90. So we've doubled our enrollment. If those kids were not playing baseball, they'd be doing something else.
Right.
And if it's something else, the chances are it's not an organized something else. There's an element that exists in those neighborhoods, that will pull these kids into enrollment in gangs. They'll be doing things at night that they shouldn't be doing and we don't want them to do. Right. So without the program, it really is the heart of that neighborhood. Those kids are there. We have to, when we as the coaches leave, we have to tell the kids, go home, you don't live here.
Right.
Even the kids that aren't playing or practicing that game, they come and they hang at the park. It's they can get fed cheaply in the concession stand. They're safe. They're in the confines of the park and they hang out. They hang out and they throw the ball against the wall, which drives me crazy, but they do it all. You hear thump, thump, thump. They're in the basketball court. We now have a splash pad, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about later.
I was just going to say that lot's been done at the park. Let's talk about that.
It's come a long way.
Yeah.
So, if we didn't have the program, I think there would be a lot of kids who would be at risk that are not at risk because of the program.
Yeah, sports really is that's as a kid, you think you're out there to compete and you're out there to win, but really what it is to keep you on track, teach you how to the benefits and team, how you can achieve things with other people. And that's really what I took out of it. Once I graduated from high school, it kind of all became clear. It was like, all those people were just trying to teach me how to be a better person. I never really got better at baseball.
No,
I didn't.
And the kids, they don't. I think on some levels they do. They want to win.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say it's not about winning. The kids want to win, and to a large extent, so too do the coaches.
Right. Yeah.
You sometimes have to. Sometimes Little League is adults behaving badly. You got to keep them in check as well to say these children at oldest are 12 years old here, coach. But it'll give you an idea of how ingrained the game is in us. They want to compete. Yeah. And they do.
Yeah, it's part of our biology, really.
It certainly is,
Everybody's got to you want to see and kind of figure out where you fall out.
It's America's pastime.
Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about your history. We kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the interview. You've been doing this for 7 years now, you said before?
Right, I've been president, I think this is my 7th or 8th year.
7th or 8th year. All right. So we talked a little bit before what the league was, what it's become today. So we were talking about the infrastructure of the parks. We need to build those up, the infrastructure of concessions, getting some type of organization behind so that you guys could build some sustainability in the league. What type of continuous improvements can we expect from Lynn Shore Little League?
Well, we have made just great strides. When I initially took the program over, we as the board, it wasn't just me. There's a whole group of people who support underneath me, but our major field was in real disrepair, so we gutted it. Jeff Earp, Jim Bellevue, John Kasayan from Community Development, Billy Trahant brought in some heavy equipment that we otherwise wouldn't normally have had access to. We leveled our infield. We rebuilt the infield. We gutted the dirt. We brought in 60 tons of clay. That was raised through private funds and some through community development. We pulled out the old rusted backstop on the major field. We have since put a fence around our minor field. We built a brand new batting cage on the minor field. Those came along, some of those funds came along with the grant for the splash pad. So over by the tennis court, there was a $300,000 grant from the state working with community development where we were able to install a splash pad similar to the one we have at Flax Pond.
Okay.
That came live last fall, late summer last fall, so we really haven't seen the impact of that. But I suspect this summer, all of the kids that are on our playground are going to come across our field. One of the reasons we put a field around our minor, fence around our minor field was to get from the playground to the splash pad. They could very well have walked right across our outfield, so we had to fence that in.
Okay.
Mostly safety reasons. So last fall, Billy Trahant, North Shore Medical Center donated the material, and Billy's construction crew, we were able to build a press box above our third base dugout. We initially wanted it behind the backstop, but there's some piping underneath that we weren't able to go down. So we had to move it over onto the third base dugout. Prior to that point in time, when we had tournament games, which, by the way, we were never eligible for tournament games prior to fixing the field. The tournament is what happens at the end of the regular season. We'll talk a little bit about that. So we were able, up until the point where we built the press box, we had to have all of that announcing and everything on the field level with a little table behind home plate. And when you've got the umpire and the games going on there, that's not the ideal location for that. It worked, and we did it. But now that we have the press box, we were able to put a scoreboard on top of the press box. Yeah. It's the only, currently the only scoreboard in the city that tracks pitch counts. Ooh. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but you can only throw a player on the mound. He can only throw X amount of pitches over a course of X amount of days. Right. And there is a constant communication. What's the pitch count? How many's he got left? You got a kid up there who can throw fire. You want him to be, and he's on the other team. You want his pitch count to expire so that they have to pull him out and hopefully get a kid in that you can hit.
Right.
So
it's a bit of strategy to it, too.
It does help with the strategy, and you constantly have coaches coming over from both sides saying, to the director's table, what's the count, what's the pitch count. The one thing that I have found, never mind the score, for the part of the game, leaving the pitch count up top just prevents a whole bunch of traffic coming over too. It sounds silly, but it has paid dividends.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's proven
it's a nuance of the game, but it's important.
Yeah, especially in regard to what you guys are trying to accomplish. It definitely, it seems like it has its role and it has its benefits. It's doing exactly
it's to
what it needs
protect
to be.
a child's arm.
Right.
They can only throw so many pitches before they have to rest for so many days.
Right. Yeah, you're growing up. You don't want to really kind of be in a situation where, you've done something where you can't really go back. So I want to talk a little bit about the tradition of baseball. And the reason why is because we're talking about all these collaborations that really were put in place to help Lynn Shore Little League become what it is today and what it could possibly even become in the future. So the tradition of baseball is definitely alive and well in the city of Lynn, considering there are 6 separate leagues. We're going to touch base with each of these presidents on our show, talk a little bit about what they're doing in the community and value that they bring. But just for you on a personal level, what's the tradition of baseball mean to you?
Well, I absolutely grew up with it. I remember my very first night game at Fenway Park, walking up the ramp from center field in the bright lights. And I'm sure there are many people that have this same memory, but just the sea of green for Fenway Park. Having grown up and played, we used to get up on a Saturday morning. I still can smell spring in the air. I used to throw my glove on my bike and take my bike and ride it up the Pine Hill. And we would take our gloves and put them on home plate. And if your glove was on the bottom of home plate, that meant that your team was going to be able to play on that. Not for a game, but for a pickup game. First glove on the plate was the first team that was able to pick, and we would stand against the fence and we would pick our teams and we'd have a pickup game. And I remember getting up early enough so that I would be the first glove down. And if there weren't enough kids in the field, we would go over and play basketball until enough kids came down. I don't remember exactly the time, but we watched a little bit of cartoons on a Saturday morning and then went up to the park and dropped our gloves. So for me, it's just part of having grown up. It's part of, I've owned Red Sox season tickets for 20 years. So baseball is just, it's part of every single day of my life.
Now, the Dorgans are a big family in Lynn. We were talking about your siblings at the beginning of the show, and you went on your rant. How many siblings you got? Go ahead,
I have 9
name
sisters and 2 brothers.
9 sisters, 2 brothers.
Right,
So
all these.
your parents, are they done having kids now?
They are.
Okay, so they're done doing that.
Yeah, mom and dad are in their 80s. So.
Okay, so they're all done now. So go ahead, list your brothers and sisters.
Denise, Debbie, Diane, Dennis, Darlene, Doreen, Donna, Don, Dale, David, Tina, Deirdre.
So they all start with a D,
They do.
right? And it's the Dorgans.
Right.
So is there a correlation there? You guys just really like D's? Is that it?
You know, there's a story, I believe my oldest sister was named after my aunt, and they're both Denise. And then Debbie was maybe one of my mother's favorite nuns at school, Sister Deborah.
Okay.
Diane was born during Hurricane Diane. Dennis was my grandfather's name, so at that point we had Denise, Debbie, Diane, Dennis, and I think it just rolled from
Yeah, we're too
my
far
uncle
into
David,
this.
and I'm David, so there was a David somewhere down the line.
Okay, we got a David here at LCTV. He's all right. So now, over there at the Lynn Shore Little League, we were talking a little bit about some of the things that you're working to achieve, some of the things that you need. Coaches are a big thing that you need. Also, there's a way that people can kind of give back if they don't have time. The Angel program, which I thought was a really, really cool niche. Let's talk about that.
Right. So we have, we represent a demographic of some challenged families, and some of those families just, quite frankly, can't afford to pay. And you know, the typical Little League response is to volunteer, but when those families are single mom families, there's really not a lot of time.
Right.
And so essentially what happens is we take those kids anyways. We never ever turn a child away because they can't pay. That's just not the Little League way in general, and it certainly isn't the way we run our league. So
some of these kids that come down, you'd mentioned they don't even have cleats, they don't have gloves, they don't have any of that stuff.
they don't know. In fact, I regularly go to yard sales on a Saturday morning, and I buy cleats and I buy gloves. And we have my brother Dan and I have sort of a glom bucket. And they're gently used, they're good cleats, they're good pants, they're good. Kids outgrow their things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you see them in yard sales, there's a pile.
Right.
I often tell people I'm not paying for them. You're donating that to my Little League.
Yeah.
People are very receptive to
Right.
that. Yeah.
So why, a lot of people, one thing to recognize, everybody who's involved over there, they're volunteers. So I mean, why are you putting in all this effort?
I just think it's the right thing to do. You know, we touched upon the Angel program, but so essentially what I've got is I've reached out to a group of friends, and it's kind of grown a little bit from there. The true cost of having a child in the program is about $50. We charge $100 for a registration. $50 of it will pay to put the kid on the field, the hat, the uniform, the socks, the belts. It's about $50. So the Angel program is a $50 anonymous donation, and that pays for a child to come on the field. It basically puts us at a zero sum. We don't lose. When we take a child, we'd be negative $50. So the Angel program just brings us level. It is a donation, and we're a 501c3 organization, so it's a tax-deductible donation. And it enables us, I think a lot of people respond to the fact that we could tell them the child that they paid to put on the field. So.
Yeah, definitely something like that would speak volumes to, me. This is a 30-year-old young professional type guy, probably don't have a lot of time. How can you give back? A small $50 donation, that's going to last 3 months for a kid.
Yeah, even longer, but yeah.
And you guys, even if you end up competing at, the regional levels, and you can go even longer.
Right, after the end of the regular season, we go to All-Stars, and that basically starts a second season. So it's another season within a season, is to do the All-Star games.
Dave, I'm psyched that you were able to come onto the show. I want to encourage you. Let's keep this network open so we can keep our viewership informed as to all the great news that's being brought out of Kiley Park down there with the help of the Lynn Shore Little League. I want to thank my guest, Dave Dorgan, president of the Lynn Shore Little League. reach out to these guys. You can jump online. You can visit them on their website, www.lynnshore.org. You can reach out to them on the phone, 781-309-7566. They're also on Facebook and Twitter, Lynn Shore LL. They play down at Kiley Park. If you're an email guy, lynnshorelittleague@hotmail.com. That's it for the show from the studio here at Lynn Community Television. I'm Sean Donahue, wishing you all the best.